right, good afternoon, everyone. Glad that you joined us again. And for those of you that are out up there on Facebook, welcome. You are joining the Life and Death Matters series. Today, we will be talking about funeral etiquette and some historical view of funerals. And also, Jerrica is going to go over our website at Gillette Memorial Chapel, Walker Funeral Homes. I'm Vicki Kissack. I am just co-hosting today. As I said, Jerrica Mills is our business manager, and she's going to take it today and run with it. And we just appreciate you joining next week, next Thursday, 1 to 3, same place, same time. Rick Erb will be here giving legal concepts about things that should be talked about at this time of our life as well. So, but for now, I'm going to turn it over to Jerrica Mills, and she's going to go over funeral etiquette and processes.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. So yeah, I'm Jerrica Mills. I'm the business manager for Gillette Memorial Chapel, Walker Funeral Home. Basically, we're encompass Gillette Funeral Service here in Gillette. I've been with the company 13 years, starting this year is 13. I've had the opportunity just to help families, and I've learned a lot actually across the board about everything. But I'm going to talk to you about the difference between an obituary and a eulogy. So they both touch us and how we remember and honor the one who has passed away. The two of the most, and by doing so, of course, it's the obituary or a eulogy. And they both serve as a tribute to a life lived, but they are not the same. So I want to take you on that journey, celebrating the life of a loss, and how to process through it while remembering them. And then by the end of this discussion about this part of my presentation today, I hope you'll understand, they have just a greater appreciation for the two forms of remembrance, and maybe have that inspiration. I know Rita got some help for you, get some obituaries last week. But there is differences. So let's start with an obituary. The word obituary comes from the Latin obituaris, meaning pertaining to death. Despite its somber origin, an obituary is more than just an announcement of death. It is written more of a summary of the person's life. So what I think of an obituary when families say, oh, I didn't want one, I don't think we need one. It's more of a historical record to include, essential details, but that historical record helps genealogy researchers follow back people, and they really do. I have a friend that said she does genealogy, and she says I probably read more obituaries than anything, just tracing back people's lineage. So an obituary usually includes the person's full name, birth, and date of death, their immediate family members, and sometimes those are vast amounts, their education, their career, and their accomplishments, contributions to the community, that's how kind of somebody might relate to them. And then information, of course, about the funeral or any memorial services. Newspapers have published obituaries for centuries. And in today's digital world, you can find them just by searching. So that's kind of evolved where there's online memorials. And so when we talk about our website, I'll show you that people can leave condolences. I don't think Darren's able to make it today, but our cemetery actually has a memorial page connected to that, and families can add more photos, and so can our website. So that helps online memorials. And then, but it's not, it's ways for the extended community to reach out. An obituary, though, is not just facts. It also conveys, the spirits of that individual. Just some are more, deeply moving, and then some are humorous. I've read some online ones just of different ways, but I can share an example of just a snippet of one that I found. This one went viral. So this man named Harry Stamps, his family described him as a lover of butter, bacon, and the TV remote, which I was like, okay. They mentioned his unwavering belief that every meal should include a biscuit, and that he despised eating in fancy restaurants. You don't get a biscuit at fancy restaurants. So this was kind of a storytelling this kind of storytelling kind of adds that personality to an obituary, which makes it more of just a list of dates, accomplishments, and family. It does add a little bit of attitude, I guess I'd call it, to it, but not as much emotion. Any questions on obituaries? Like,
Do you have to have one?
you don't have to have one. I just encourage it. Like I said, it's more historical. It's for those, you might have grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren later in life going, I don't really know a lot about them, but now with the internet, you can search. So how much easier is that to them to learn a little more? Unless, of course, you're one of those, my husband's grandmother wrote in a journal every day, whether it was what the weather was, how she was feeling, what happened on the ranch. She did it every day, I think, from the age of 12 until 96. And so that helped us, but, not many people do that anymore. So an obituary kind of helps that, at least in the digital world, your legacy to be continued on. All right, so a eulogy, and I'm trying really hard to push eulogies more than obituaries because I have attended a funeral in Gillette. Everybody reads that obituary. Guess what? It's on that card we handed to them. I'm like, I really think they've already read it. They're getting it read to. Why? So I'm a pusher for eulogies, and let's say a eulogy, unlike an obituary, it's a spoken tribute. It's delivered at the funeral. The obituary is on the page. It's on that card. The word eulogy, yes.
So does it need to be at a funeral? Or is it, then that's why they don't do it at memorial services?
No, it can be encouraged at memorial services too. To me, whatever you're doing as remembrance, I really don't feel like that obituary needs to be read. It should be a eulogy to me. And so a eulogy, I'll tell you what it means. The Greek is eulogia, meaning praise and blessing. Eulogies are deeply personal. It's an opportunity for a family, an acquaintance, a friend, somebody close to that person to share stories, memories, reflections, more in-depth life stories that made that loved one so special. And I'm actually going to show you, this is one of the shortest. John McCain had many eulogies given, but George W. Bush gave one, and this is one of my favorites because he makes him a person. But he also, so I'll show you that here in just a second. But, like I said, imagine at a funeral, you're sitting there. The obituary is already on the program. You were provided the facts. But then a close friend gets up. Then they don't have to read that list of accomplishments. They can tell your stories. They can tell your secret. Something you did that was maybe naughty as a child, or how your beliefs were that maybe not everybody's seen. So here's just a snippet too. I remember when John and I were kids, he tried to build a tree house and he forgot one key thing: nails. Simple things like that make people remember John might not have been the best planner. He stacked wood, climbed up, it all collapsed underneath him, but instead of giving up, he sat there laughing, already planning his next attempt. That was John. He was finding the joy in the moment, always determined to build something greater. That it touches the audience. It makes them connect with that family, that person, that loved one. It just does something like obituaries just can't. When people do write some obituaries for papers, they get pretty in depth. But to me, when they bring those to me, I almost encourage them to go, don't you have somebody who can tell these stories? It makes it more personal. It makes it more memorable. So let me start this. It's 7 minutes long, but it's really nice. I just really love how he spoke. Can I put my volumes up? The TV volumes up? Ready? We'll try it. I'm going to pause it. My volume's up. So do you have a volume remote for your TV?
think so.
I'm not sure.
We were able to get it connected, we're lucky, yeah, I was hoping. There's not, I looked for all the buttons and they're at the top. Unless it's on that side.
I think it would be on the remote, right?
Oh, I know where it is. It's on the side.
Sorry.
I was like, oh, I have one of these at home.
I would not have looked on the side either.
Cindy and the McCain family, I am honored to be with you to offer my sympathies and to celebrate a great life. The nation joins your extraordinary family in grief and gratitude for John McCain. Some lives are so vivid, it's difficult to imagine them ended. Some voices are so vibrant and distinctive, it's hard to think of them stilled. A man who seldom rested is laid to rest, and his absence is tangible, like the silence after a mighty roar. The thing about John's life was the amazing sweep of it, from a tiny prison cell in Vietnam to the floor of the United States Senate, from troublemaking plebe presidential candidate. Wherever John passed throughout the world, people immediately knew there was a leader in their midst. In one epic life was written the courage and greatness of our country. For John and me, there was a personal journey, our hard-fought political history. Back in the day, he could frustrate me. And I know he'd say the same thing about me. But he also made me better. In recent years, we sometimes talk of that intense period like football players remembering a big game. In the process, rivalry melted away. In the end, I got to enjoy one of life's great gifts, the friendship of John McCain, and I'll miss him. Moments before my last debate ever with Senator John Kerry in Phoenix, I was trying to gather some thoughts in the holding room. I felt a presence, opened my eyes, and 6 inches from my face was McCain, who yelled, "Relax, relax." John was above all a man with a code. He lived by a set of public virtues that brought strength and purpose to his life and to his country. He was courageous, with a courage that frightened his captors and inspired his countrymen. He was honest, no matter whom it offended. Presidents were not spared. He was honorable, always recognizing that his opponents were still patriots and human beings. He loved freedom with the passion of a man who knew its absence. He respected the dignity inherent in every life, a dignity that does not stop at borders and cannot be erased by dictators. Perhaps above all, John detested the abuse of power, could not abide bigots and swaggering despots. There was something deep inside him that made him stand up for the little guy, to speak for forgotten people in forgotten places. One friend from his Naval Academy days recalls how John, while a lowly plebe, reacted to seeing an upperclassman verbally abuse a steward. Against all tradition, he told the jerk to pick on someone his own size. It was a familiar refrain during his 6 decades of service. Where did such strength of conviction come from? Perhaps from a family where honor was in the atmosphere, or from the firsthand experience of cruelty which left physical reminders that lasted his whole life, or from some deep well of moral principle. Whatever the cause, it was this combination of courage and decency that defined John's calling, and so closely paralleled the calling of his country. It's this combination of courage and decency that makes the American military something new in history, an unrivaled power for good. It's this combination of courage and decency that set America on a journey into the world, to liberate death camps, to stand guard against extremism, and to work for the true peace that comes only with freedom. John felt these commitments in his bones. It is a tribute to his moral compass that dissidents and prisoners in so many places, from Russia to North Korea to China, knew that he was on their side. And I think their respect meant more to him than any medals and honors life could bring. The passion for fairness and justice extended to our own military. When a private was poorly equipped or a seaman was overworked in terrible conditions, John enjoyed nothing more than dressing down an admiral or a general. He remained a troublesome plebe to the end. Those in political power were not exempt. At various points throughout his long career, John confronted policies and practices that he believed were unworthy of his country. To the face of those in authority, John McCain would insist, "We are better than this. America is better than this." John, as he was the first to tell you, was not a perfect man, but he dedicated his life to national ideals that are as perfect as men and women have yet conceived. He was motivated by a vision of America carried ever forward, ever upward, on the strength of his principles. He saw our country not only as a physical place or power, but as the carrier of enduring human aspirations, as an advocate for the oppressed, as a defender of the peace, as a promise, unwavering, undimmed, unequaled. The strength of a democracy is renewed by reaffirming the principles on which it was founded. And America somehow has always found leaders who were up to that task, particularly at the time of greatest need. John was born to meet that kind of challenge, to defend and demonstrate the defining ideals of our nation. If we're ever tempted to forget who we are, to grow weary of our cause, John's voice will always come as a whisper over our shoulder. We are better than this. America is better than this. John was a restless soul. He really didn't glory in success or wallow in failure, because he was always on to the next thing. Friends said he can't stay in the same experience. One of his books ended with the words, "And I moved on." John has moved on. He would probably not want us to dwell on it, but we are better for his presence among us. The world is smaller for his departure, and we will remember him as he was, unwavering, undimmed, unequal.
So I don't know. When I Google and I look at a lot of eulogies, I just love how they connect. I mean, his honor, his pride, his commitment. You can Google more. He had quite a few. His daughter, I think, spoke also. So you can have it. A eulogy can come from a friend, a colleague, a child, depending on the strength of them to be able to get up. But that, to me, it touches way more than an obituary. The audience or the attendees of that service have read that obituary. They read it in the paper. They've read it online. They're reading it in the memorial. So having that eulogy, I wish our community, every time I talk to clergy, I'd be like, please don't read that obituary. They've already read it. It never failed. They always stick it in there. And I'm like, oh. But that were just some of the key, if you can, just seeing that makes a difference. It's hard for me to describe a eulogy without you really experiencing one. So that's one that I really like experiencing. So what are the key differences, of course? An obituary informs, a eulogy remembers. And why does this distinction matter, though? Probably the timing and the purpose. An obituary is usually written shortly after the person's passing. Service announcements, public announcements. The eulogy is delivered, of course, at the time of remembrance, so they have had time to think. They've had time to develop that thought, what they're wanting. An obituary's audience reaches just a broad audience, including those people that may or may not have known that decedent. The eulogy is for those people in the room, those ones that are grieving, those ones that are seeking comfort. And of course, the tones and the emotion. An obituary is pretty dry, meaningful. It's got meaning, but it's dry. It's informational. It's just more formal. And you edit with a eulogy, you can, of course, it can be humorous. I've even researched different ways. I've even thought about, which is kind of weird, but I do think about if I wrote one for my husband. Different ideas. He has so many pet peeves. That might be my focus. But everybody would know them that knew him. Or they might learn a few new ones. So that's kind of how a eulogy connects the people to that loved one that you're remembering and honoring. Both eulogies and obituaries, they do play an honoring role. But a eulogy is just a more lasting impression on their hearts compared to an obituary is just, it's just a legacy in print. But I still do encourage people to submit an obituary to newspapers, put them online at least. And obituaries on newspapers is going away from print. At least get them put online. We always encourage anybody. I know if you search ours, if I have a photo of the person that connects too. Oh, they didn't like taking photos. There's got to be one, one, even if it's from their high school, at least connect it with them. So yeah, I guess when you're talking with your family, planning your services or planning somebody else's, I would just encourage to visit with family and just say, I really thought about it. I think I want somebody to just say something at my service. We have, in our community, and I know in others, they open it up for sharing, but the sharing is just tidbits. It's not, you need to get that loved one or that colleague or that best friend that can share the good stories, the good memories, or the bad, just depending. I was at a service yesterday, and one friend even said, I didn't think I was going to come, but I needed to. And he got up and spoke of how the person was there for a midnight phone call when he needed his help, when he needed to understand how he struggled for being a dad that was hurt, and needed help. And I was just like, wow, what a connection, And people might not have known they had those phone calls. His son might not have realized how important his dad was to others. So that made that connection. And sharing is nice, but having that full eulogy to share a little bit more, I don't know, just having that extra little stories, whether it's a grandchild or whoever can share. So yeah, so on this part of it, I'm gonna kind of close with, just remember, like the next time you hear an obituary or read an obituary, I guess, or hear a eulogy, just take a moment to appreciate that love, that care, that storytelling. And hopefully you can, encourage, teach, expand that, what knowledge you've gotten here today to help people. Funerals are a dying celebration, I guess. It's going away. They didn't want nothing. And everybody says that, and I go, well, yeah, but what do you want? So when you're saying that to your children, I don't really want anything. I don't say that to mine. I make sure they have a list of saying, you need to remember me. This is why we do this. So just remember that the storytelling is always great. It keeps going. It keeps going on. If there's a fellowship afterwards, those stories will be told again. But it's that eulogy during a service is so impactful. I think it brings out more stories. So, any questions? Any ideas about eulogies? Did I change your mind? Not to just do an obituary on your memorial card. Actually have a service. That That's what I use encourage services. It's not for the decedent, it's for the loved ones, it's for the friends, it's for the family to remember that person. I don't know.
Yeah, but how many people write their own?
Actually, more often than not, the older generations are starting to. Their families may plug more in, but I have a lot that come in, and Vicki is a pre-planner, so they'll bring us, well, here's a little bit. And I actually have one lady that she comes in almost every 6 months, and she's like, I need to add a little more. I need to add a little more. I'm like, great, she did something more. She traveled somewhere else. They had a new grandbaby. She doesn't want anybody to be forgotten either. So she's constantly adding her family members to it. So even just that little bit, even if you have to keep it on your computer or, in a little file that just says my funeral, whatever you need to do to keep yourself. But here at the funeral home, we keep it. I just keep adding her notes to her file. So when she does pass away, I will probably have to sit with the family and, put it together. But a lot of people do write their own, at least get it started for the family. Your children might not know a lot about your youth. Even writing that down helps. Any stories you'd like to remember. My husband's grandma, luckily, this was a story she shared when she was alive to my children, so her great-grandchildren, and she was telling them, yep, the first time I came from Missouri, I was 12 years old, and we went by Mount Rushmore when they were building it, and they were like they were building it, and she said, and there was only 2 faces. My kids still remember that story from grandma. So, just having that extra knowledge because she lived 96 years. So we didn't know a lot of it until she was in her 80s when they came along, so it was just like, grandma did a lot.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I just encourage families to write down more and then also get somebody to just give a eulogy, give some stories, tell those tricks and stories and a good recipe even, and that's even a good thing. So I'm going to share though our website, which is kind of useful. It has a lot of questions. Oh, come on.
I'd like to clarify something. Were you saying that the eulogy is written down in the?
No, the obituary is usually on the memorial card. Is the
Okay.
hand, yeah. The eulogies, and there could be more than one given, but it's more.
Okay.
But I have had families, or the person that has given the eulogy, they may have typed up that story, and it could have been, I think one guy was a colleague, he typed it up, and he gave that to the family just to have, because they did some of those, they didn't know those work stories. He didn't come home and tell them work stories. He told them, and that's what his wife said, oh no, he didn't really talk about stuff that happened at work, that was his work life. He wanted to spend the time with his family. So that too, and so it just kind of depends on how that's a nice, even a gift for that person giving the eulogy. So this is our website. It's GilletteMemorialChapel.com, or even if you type in WalkerFuneralGillette.com, you get both of them. And so a lot of us, there's obituary listings, how to send flowers. Our honoring veterans, I actually just learned this page because I don't know why, I'm like, oh, I know all about veterans, but we have to select when we set up the person in on our website, the honoring veterans. So if you knew the person was a veteran, they're automatically on this page. So that's kind of nice that if you're not sure and you're just like, oh, I just want to find a veteran, you can go to that under obituaries honoring veterans. You can receive notifications from our website. So you can subscribe. So anytime a new obituary is placed on our website, you would get an email in it. So you just type in your email and it lets you know that we've had and added a new obituary or any service information. We have live streaming, so this provides, of course, our live streaming information for services. The service tab just kind of gives you a breakdown of all the stuff that we provide, all the types of services. The planning ahead, of course, helps you tell you why to plan ahead. Pre-planning checklists on there, and little things that Vicki covers, which is kind of nice. I noticed people research more before they call us, which is kind of nice because then I'm not as confused with some of their questions and they get more, which is fine if they're not sure what they're talking about, but they have more of an idea of what their need is. Some families just call and I can answer most questions that way. But if you're just at home and it's for some reason crossed your
I'm
mind,
not sure what time.
then you can always, and a lot of funeral homes have these resources, which is nice. And then of course we have aftercare, and we have a program. We have an everything after program that when somebody passes away, we actually are able to, we send out a text message to the family members that are on there, and it helps put your affairs in order. It helps you understand grief. And the best part is I actually signed up for this, so I kind of wanted to get the experience of what happened, because they didn't really explain it to me a whole lot when they started, but they're like, just send yourself an email, which is great. And I get an email asking me what's my grief, and it gives me different resources to deal with grief, because you do keep dealing with grief way longer than you think. And then it also will give, if you're into yoga or breathing, which is kind of nice, I don't know, it gives you breathing techniques of how to reduce your stress. And I get it around the holidays, and it continues, which is kind of nice. So that's a resource that we have. We just have so many. Even funeral etiquette is on here, which is kind of, because I get phone calls about etiquette of, should I, what can I wear? Is it appropriate? Sometimes I can give them more if I know the family, but visitations, some people don't understand what a visitation or a wake or even is if the body's present. And I can tell you, some people want to know that when they call. If you've read the obituary and it says memorial service, the body probably isn't going to be present. It's going to be a cremation service. If it says funeral service, it's probably going to have that body present, which that's the difference, having the decedent, and that makes a difference for some people to attend. If they're comfortable, or if they want to, they want to have that final goodbye. And we're kind of ingrained from long ago to have that. And cremation has thrown that confusion, I guess I would say, to some people's minds, that it's just they're not sure how a funeral or a service is going to go when there's not a casket. You'd be surprised the questions, and the funniest thing is we get at the funeral is, I might have a silly question. No question to a funeral director or me is silly, because we like to educate everybody in the community. So there's all things about us, resources, what else? And there's also here how to write a eulogy. It's very short, sweet, simple, to the point, but also how to write an obituary. So I always encourage families to read that over, but I also encourage, if you're, they're like, I just really don't know how to write an obituary. We can give you it. I think Rita probably gave you the outline, but I also tell families, just go to our obituary, start reading past obituaries. And there's some that are short, sweet, to the point, and then there's some that are long and extensive, but that person may have had an extensive amount of experience in their life. There's just so much. We have our team on here, so sometimes people want to know who they're coming to see. That's on here, our history. But this is just a lot of resources that would just be helpful. Grief with children, and it might not be directly coming from us. We do have other resources that contribute to our website. So they're all vetted and make sure that they all work well. And then of course, if you're ever wondering if you're on an obituary and you want to share it, of course, there's always that obituary or that Facebook. Some people are like, I need to share it. Always look for the little, the circle with the F in it, and then you can share things on Facebook. And then we also, there's just a vast amount of things that you can find on this website. It's just a lot. Sometimes I even forget what all we have, and so when people call in, I even go to it really quick and go, hold on, let me walk you exactly through where you need to go. So if you ever need me, we're just a resource, a phone call away. I like telling people that, because I don't mind getting those phone calls during the day. We're here to help you, not just during the time of passing. Even if you're thinking about buying a cemetery plot, I can, direct you in the way you need to go. Where to buy flowers, who to buy, if the family wants flowers. We get to have, some people, even in the obituary, it might not say, but we might have heard they've come in later and be like, did they really want flowers? I had a lot last week, actually. We had a lot of memorial organizations, and they're like, but it says in lieu. Does that mean I can send flowers? You sure can. If it says in lieu of flowers, you sure can. But, I'm going to tell you, when the families do that, they prefer you to contribute because that's what their loved one would have wanted. So if it's to, even the Campbell County Library, hospice, there's a lot. I mean, we have a list. So if somebody, or if they put to a favorite charity, you can call me, and I have a list of charities that people can, that appreciate a little bit extra in our community. We're such a giving community anyway, so you kind of always think of the big ones, but there's a lot of little ones that need that extra support too. So yeah, I'm trying to think what else. Any questions? I know I give a lot of information. I kind of start spewing it, and I'm just like, I just love our website. We used to have one that wasn't as great, and they updated it for us. So, but yeah, and we even do monuments. No, but not everybody knows that, and you can even order your monument before you pass away. So if you have a cemetery spot already, I have a few gentlemen that they said, no, I want to be in charge of what it looks like, and they took care of it. And then it also takes that burden off of your children. So, just having that stone already picked out, because that's some of the times they don't even think that they need to do that. So, yes.
What can we use as an urn?
Oh, an urn can be anything. I have filled cookie jars. I have filled cowboy boots, biking boot, motorcycle bike boots, coffee cans. I'm trying to think of all the different things I have filled. I think, we did a birdhouse one time. Somebody had built a birdhouse, and then they just had it made because she really liked birdhouses. Of course, there's urns available pretty much everywhere. To me, if it's a vessel that can hold anything, it can be an urn, whether it's big or small. If you don't want to ever be separated, though, I always encourage families to make sure the cubic inches is enough, and I can always tell them when they come in or ask, and we let them know whether or not they might not fit completely in it. Oh, what else was there? My favorite is cookie jars, because most grandmas have a really unique one that they've always had or something, so that, if it reminds them of that. Yeah, and cowboy boots. I remember the cowboy boots, and I was just, and of course, I will tell you, no, the remains are not just poured in loosely, like on the movies. That doesn't happen. It doesn't get broken and they spill, and you're like, oh no, it will never happen. They are always placed inside a plastic bag or a biodegradable usually bag. They're made, but they don't really, that in the biodegradable bags won't degrade unless they're in ground and come into contact with moisture or anything. So yeah, so we seal them up real good and tight, and I've never had an accident. The only ones that probably aren't going to be in a bag is if you got jewelry and had a little bit of the remains placed in that. So, but yeah, urns can be anything of a vessel. Any other questions?
How big of an urn if I want to be placed into a niche wall?
Oh, into a niche wall. So it'll also depend on the size of your niche. There's a few different sizes up at the cemetery. Some of them are deeper, but usually a standard, I would say, I'm trying to think, 11 by 9 by 9-ish. And it's kind of depending, it will always depend on your niche wall, because, and then up at our cemetery also, if you've ever been up there, they have boulders along the garden, up in the gardens. Underneath those boulders, it has to be, it's 9 inches, 8.5 inches diameter, and it's usually a cylinder, and we do sell those at the funeral home. There's spots already built in under those boulders, but you can buy the boulder, which is kind of neat, and they engrave on those boulders. So there are spots at our cemetery at Mount Pisgah that are a certain size requirement, but I always recommend the families to get that internal dimension of the niche. So, and if you don't have it, and you're at our cemetery or anyone that is staffed, I can usually call and get the answer within a couple minutes. So if it's not one that's staffed, it might take me a day to get a hold of those ones that are out of town. So, and then luckily in Gillette, in Campbell County, I guess I'll say, in Campbell County, you don't require, a vault isn't required, an outer burial container for like urns. But in other counties in Wyoming, a lot more do require them. Some of it's because of the ground, the soil, the dirt, and then they can, I mean, most of the time we can explain why depending on the location.
I understand moving an urn
Uh-huh.
from here to South Dakota.
Yep.
But if you do a big funeral here, but you want to be buried, I mean, is that the logistics of that hard? Or?
There's not, it's
No.
actually really easy. We can do it in many different ways. We can either, so a few of our funeral directors are actually licensed in bordering state, so we're able to go to those states without having to contact another funeral home in that state. But no, normal, I can tell you, we actually have a family that, if you have a burial transit permit from the state of Wyoming, the family can transport themselves also, which we are do it ourselves kind of people. I've noticed that a lot.
Back and pick up that or what?
I've had it in a stock
Oh
trailer.
my God.
I'm just gonna shut that so don't keep doing that. He was a stock contractor, or he was, he hauled stock, so that's the way he wanted to go, and that worked out great for him. We had, well, of course, if you want to transport, some people don't live here, but they want to go full casketed back to Michigan. When that happens, we can either fly you there, we can either let the family transport, or we coordinate with a ground cargo, and we would just coordinate with a receiving funeral home. If we're not licensed in that state, we just have to ask a receiving funeral home. It may be a little bit more costly to do it, but if that's what the family prefers, we do pretty much whatever the family prefers. So yes, when we have a big, huge stock trailer at a funeral, you know what we're doing. We're accommodating them. Luckily, Vicki's husband has horses and a wagon. He has done, we call him to take them to the cemetery. I'm trying to think of other ways. Back of an old pickup truck that went up to the cemetery. I actually have a family that's what their mom wanted, was a last ride in this, I don't even remember the model, but they're taking her actually over to the Black Hills National Cemetery. And they were just like, is this okay? Can we do this? Yes, you can. And we don't, and sometimes we don't even have to travel with you, so then you don't have the funeral home expense of that. And that helps a lot too. Yeah, I didn't think that was possible until I started working, and I found out Gillette, Wyoming has a lot of do-it-myself kind of people. If they can do it themselves, they're probably going to do it before letting us. So, any other questions? Like I said, I throw a lot at you. I only get a little bit of time. Vicki only gives me, so long, no. But like I just said, encourage your family's eulogies. Encourage even your clergy and eulogy. Get that grandchild or that, daughter or son to speak on your behalf rather than read that obituary. They're fine. I mean, it's fine if it happens, but most people, when they're hearing that obituary, they've already read it, probably a couple times. So, anything else? Okay, Vicki's gonna take up, do you need this?
I'm gonna plug in.
Okay, I'm gonna unplug me.
You inspired me.
I did, good.
Okay. You wanna run the remote?
I will run the remote for you.
Okay. I do not have any volume.
Oh, that's okay.
I am the volume.
You want a microphone?
No, they don't want me to microphone this whole room. Okay. And then we'll- I think,
You need
actually,
this though for the,
or the Facebook Live.
you have to turn it back on, I shut it off.
You're so efficient. Okay. Alright. So. this one. Okay, so, when you read leave no burden, what does that mean to you when you see that? Just pop something out there.
Take care of it yourself.
Take care of it yourself, all right.
Don't wanna burden my kids.
Don't wanna burden the kids. I feel like that possibly Valerie has been to one of my presentations before. All right, so, like I said earlier, I'm Vicki Kissack. I actually haven't told you very much about what I do at the funeral home. I do pre-planning with families, and then I also am the aftercare coordinator. So I'll talk a little bit about both. Jerrica's gonna sit in the audience, and she's gonna challenge me with questions if nobody else has questions, just like I did for her. But pre-planning funerals is actually far more common than most people would think. So when I came to work with the funeral home, I thought, I am not gonna be very busy. I doubt that very many people wanna do this. And if they do, they must be terminally ill to do it. I was wrong on both accounts. Very rarely do I sit with anybody that is terminally ill, but I do once in a while. Thank you for coming. We'll see you next week. And also, I'm pretty busy. There's a lot of pre-planners in our community. And come to find out, in our company, there is 26 of us that work throughout the company in different states. And we're all fairly busy. So leave no burden is actually my mantra, one of my mantras for life. I've been this way most of my adult life. I think I started when I was a child just because I was always looking out for everyone and always worried about everybody. And I was probably the burden for a lot of my life. I'm sure I was for some in my family. But as I got to be a young mom and my parents started aging and things like this became very, very real to me. When I traveled as a young mom, I'd leave my boys behind and I always left a note for them, somewhere that I knew that they would find it. I wanted them to know how much I loved them, how much I wanted them to know that I had big dreams and big goals for them, and that I believed that they could do whatever they wanted to do, be whomever they wanted to be, jump as high as they could jump and run as fast as they could run. And so I would put this in a letter and I would leave it every time. My husband thought it was sad, weird, maybe sometimes, well, he probably thought, why do you do that? That's kind of dumb. But for me, I needed that. I needed to know that my family always knew how much I loved them. And so leave no burden is something that I would just like for everyone to think about is in your life, how can you leave no burden for those that you're leaving behind? More than likely, and the way it's supposed to go is we're supposed to outlive our children. We're supposed to outlive our grandchildren. And so how will you do that for them? A way that I can help you is let's get your funeral pre-planned. Let's get whether you're going to maybe not have a funeral, but you're going to have just a graveside. You want to have cremation, no services, no burial. You want to be scattered. Your remains to be scattered. Let's get that on paper. Let's help your family know that that's what you wanted. We call that your final wishes. So that's what I help people do as a pre-plan professional at your local funeral home. We're going to start with some trivia, get the brain warmed up. And even though Valerie has sat through this with me, I hope she doesn't remember the answers, but I do have some giveaways. So if she wins over and over, we will ignore her and somebody else will get the giveaway. Okay, just teasing. Here we go. All right, who holds the record for the world's most expensive funeral? Any guesses? If they don't guess, Valerie, I'm willing to. Any guesses from the crowd?
You probably think Princess Diana.
You are absolutely right.
I guess Michael Jackson.
I was gonna say, to be honest with you, you think that, but I bet it might be someone else.
Yeah, so Princess Diana, $16.2 million. And the Queen, seeing that the family was so devastated by the trauma of it all that she said everyone in the family, that to remain in the family would be pre-planned. So And when the Queen speaks, that's what you do. All right, what celebrity saw their funeral's tickets scalped for more than $10,000? Any guesses?
Now it's probably Michael Jackson.
It is Michael Jackson. All right, so Lori,
Well, Vicki, give it to someone.
okay, I'm giving away Pizza Ranch gift cards, so I'm gonna share.
Yes, please.
Okay,
do.
there you go. Everybody loves Pizza Ranch. So, Lori, you can just keep answering because everyone else is going to get your gift card. All right, here we go. It is Michael Jackson. $10,000 a seat, or more than that.
They charged to get into his, or, I mean, someone had,
Yeah.
that's just bizarre.
Okay, who owns the plot next to Marilyn Monroe?
You have there.
This is
That's what I
true. He bought the plot in 1992 for $75,000. Are you sharing this one as well? Of course you are. Okay, there you go, Galen. You get to go to Pizza Ranch on Lori.
Thank you.
All right. One more. Do we have any veterans in the room? Any veterans? Yes, I knew you were. We'll talk a little bit about veterans benefits, but for veteran service, how many stars should be visible on a properly folded flag?
13, I would bet.
Very common answer, but no.
But no.
Yeah,
11?
No.
Oh.
Cold. So you're going to get warmer. Anybody else have a guess of how many stars on a properly folded flag?
I'm told, but I can't remember.
Okay. Go
I
ahead.
don't remember. I just watched it yesterday.
It's four. For
Okay,
four.
now-
Four.
yeah, now you're
Every
talking
branch of the military is represented.
I should have remembered that.
Yes. All right.
That makes sense.
So, this is my family, and I had to add an extra picture on there because we had a grandson after this picture was taken. But everybody has their why they talk about leaving no burden, why they talk about pre-planning their services or their final wishes. This is my why. So on the very far right is our youngest grandson. His name is Wesley. And we haven't had a family picture taken since he was born, so I added him on there. He belongs to my son Justin, who is right here, and his wife Abby, and that is a picture of this little guy's older sister. Obviously, it's been a couple of years. That's Rory. My husband Clark, myself, yes, we're a few years younger there as well. And this is my oldest son Garrett, and my daughter-in-law Tommy, and then two granddaughters, JC and Blakely, and we have another grandchild coming from that couple. So they are my why. Why do I need to get my plan done? Who is your why? And I ask that as an open question. I don't expect you to answer it. You can if you'd like to, because I love stories. But just think about, who's your why? Why do you need to get your stuff planned? All right. As Jerrica was talking about our locations, I just have some pictures, and you may see that some of these are familiar to you, but this is our downtown location, Gillette Memorial Chapel. So if people think of funeral homes around Gillette, they always think of Gillette Memorial Chapel. Been serving families in this community for over 57 years now. As the new year rolled over, I need to update my screen. And this particular location will hold approximately 200 people. Jerrica will correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And then our Walker location will hold approximately 70 people.
70 to 90.
70 to 90.
Yep.
And then I don't have a picture of our funeral home in Newcastle, but it's called Meridian. And it's a little bit smaller than our Walker location, and it's probably that 60 to 80. Yeah. So these are, like I said, this is just a picture of who we are, how long we've been serving you. And as familiar as you are with the funeral home, we want you to be familiar with us as your funeral home family. We think of ourselves together as a family, and we want our community to think of us as a part of their family as well. And that's why we do these seminars and these series and the outreaches that we do. So let's talk logistics. There's 75 plus things. It's actually about 126 questions that have to be answered in the first 36 hours after death. Yes, that is a lot. When people come and pre-plan with me, that's what we go over in a non-traumatic conversation. When there has been a loss of a loved one, things that you remembered every day will be hard to remember in that trauma. I got a lot of nodding heads, people that have sat at arrangement tables. It's hard. So when you come and sit with me, we get all of this down on paper as part of your plan. So part of it is vital statistics. The one thing that usually is the hardest question, I guess, is what is your mother's maiden name? Interesting fact about your mother's maiden name and your grandmother's maiden name is if you ever decide to do public speaking, or you absolutely love it like I do, and you get stumped or emotional, if you think of your mother's maiden name or your grandmother's maiden name, it will stop the emotions. Why? Because it flips to a different part of your brain from whatever is causing you stress. This is the same reason why that's usually one of the hardest questions. Because in the moment of trauma and stress, parts of our brain is able to work and parts of it is not. So, whoever is named on your birth certificate will be named on your death certificate. Therefore, when you sit with me, we'll get down all that information. Your father's name, how is it spelled on your birth certificate? Your mother's name, how is it spelled on your birth certificate? How about your mom's maiden name? Let's get that down. Correct spellings are important. We also talk about where were they born. So we want to be sure to get all your vital statistics down. This helps our business manager and our funeral directors be able to get that death certificate ordered right away, okay? Because that triggers lots of things, the death certificate does. And other things, and you can see all these questions around here. Are you a veteran? We would get that down, what branch of the military? How would you like your veterans benefits to be fulfilled? So one of the most interesting conversations that I had, I would maybe say the most humbling, is whenever I have a veteran sit down with me, I always thank them for their service. It's very important to me because my dad's a veteran, my grandfathers were, my brother is, I have a nephew in the Navy. It's in my family, it's in my blood. But sometimes that's not exactly what a veteran wants to hear, and I learned that very abruptly one day. I had a veteran come in and I said, "Thank you so much for your service," and he said, "Don't say that to me." And it was just about that awkward. And now my personality, as you get to know me, is very curious. I'm very kind, but I'm very curious. And it kind of broke my heart a little bit because I knew there's probably more of a story there. But I backed off of the veteran information and we just got to talking and he started telling me stories and I started telling him stories. And if you come and sit with me, or when you do, we'll tell each other a lot of stories. But by the time we got done, he apologized to me for saying that. By the time we got done, I realized why he said that. He had told me enough stories about serving in Vietnam that he never wanted to remember, and he didn't know why he was telling me. And so I hear a lot of that, and I understand a lot more after spending time with people who are talking about such a sensitive subject, but a necessary subject. So when you come to spend time with me, we better pair out a couple hours because we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. And we go over those type of sensitive stories, but we also do things like, where would you like to be buried? So this is when Jerrica was talking earlier about, and the question came up about how to transport. In pre-planning, we talk about that. So maybe I've had people say, I want the services here, but I want to go back to Michigan and be buried. And they know that the cemetery is down a country road that turns into a 2-track. And then you turn at the oak tree, and then mom's grave is there, but it's not really well marked. And I think that if you just call the neighbor, he'll bring his backhoe and he'll dig the hole. Okay, so that's good. So let's talk about, like, let's Google map it. Let's figure out where it is. And so we walk through all those kind of things too. This is what I do. This is why I love my job. So the other kind of question that always makes, especially the men's eyebrow raise, is what is your favorite flower? Why would I ask that? Does anybody know? Any ideas? I'm kind of I'm putting you out there a little bit.
Make them think about what the flower they may like.
Mhm.
That's probably, they don't think about it.
Right.
Call the florist and tell them to keep those in stock.
So one of the things that is really hard for families to remember or think about are the finer things of life like that and trauma. And so the funeral director will say, what flower would you like for the casket spray? To the family. And the family is like, I don't know. I think mom liked this one. And then another family member might be like, no, that wasn't her favorite flower. Or they're all like, we don't know, we can't remember. So anytime we can pre-plan all those details, it's going to help your family just go right through it. Just boom, boom, boom. And they're gonna be so thankful. Like, oh my gosh. For me, my example is with my mom, I would have always done a rose because her middle name was Rose. And my dad said, absolutely not. She loved carnations. I was like, oh, thank you. But then there were people that wanted to put a rose on her urn at her funeral. So that was really interesting. The other one is, I love this part. And I'm telling you all this stuff, you're gonna be so ready when you come see me. So I go down through the questions and I get to the portion where I say, all of our clients or decedents will be dressed. It is a matter of respect and reverence, whether you're cremated or whether you're buried. What would you like to be dressed in? And that's a stumper for a lot of people. Can you imagine what it's gonna be like for your family? So now some people will tell me, well, my daughter can decide. Really? Do you really want your daughter to have to be thinking about that in these times? And I don't push too hard because some people, that's what they want. They want their daughter or their son to decide. But once we start talking about it, usually they have like a favorite unicorn dress, or they have a favorite football team jersey. Maybe they were a hunter, so we have some camouflage or things like that. And so we get down what you want, and we take the burden off of your family, all the way down to the finer details. Any questions on that? Any details that anybody is like, I've always wondered how you guys figured those things out? Anything yet? Okay, there's no question too creepy for people who work at the funeral homes. We love them. That does remind me though, I kind of poke fun, but I take this part pretty serious and kind of like come to attention is, so funeral homes kind of get a bad rap because people think funeral homes, that's where you go to die. That's for the dead. Well, you don't go there to die. Sometimes my funeral directors, I feel like they're gonna work themselves to the bone and near death, but, and Jerrica as well, she's a very hard worker, but people don't go to the funeral home to die. It is the act and the event of death that brings you to us. Therefore, when people think of funeral homes, they think of death. Our mission is to teach our community that when they think of their local funeral home, think of people who are there to stand in the gap for you. We are there to facilitate one of the most important events of your life, and that is to honor your loved one. And we are great event coordinators. We are very good at it, and we will treat your death or your family member's death as if it was one of our family members, and it is the greatest event to ever have been done, and we will do it well. Also, we want people to think of funeral homes as resources. We're very, very resourceful people. You can call probably anybody in the funeral home, and if they don't know the answer, they're going to redirect you to Jerrica. So she gets a lot of questions. But you can call and ask any types of questions about birth certificates. If she doesn't know about it, she's going to direct you to who is going to know about it. We're going to help you with that. Cemetery questions. A lot of questions about death certificates. Hey, my grandpa died 20 years ago. I do not know how to get another copy of it. Would you happen to have a copy of it? Do you know who I call? We get some questions about different agencies. Jerrica is very careful to not, go outside of our lane as a funeral home, but give them direction to that agency and what she knows about it. I'm talking about Social Security. We don't deal in that, but people always ask all the time about how do we get Social Security taken care of for our loved one who's passed. And I've heard these conversations that Jerrica has, and they're very nondescript yet useful. She just is able to send them in the direction of who's gonna help them, okay? So think about that. We are very resourceful people. All right, so the final wishes organizer, as your funeral planner, this is what I wanna get to you. And this is what we're going to do together. Usually it takes, like I said, an hour to 2 hours, depending on the stories we tell. We're gonna take down vital statistics. We're gonna take down those special instructions. I brought up the unicorn dress because I had a lovely lady tell me that she wanted to be buried in her unicorn dress with her horn as a tiara. And I'm like typing this out because we're gonna make that happen. Like Jerrica said, there's very few no's in the funeral industry in Gillette, Wyoming, or Newcastle, Wyoming. If it's legal, we're gonna do it. Had a question come up the other day. It wasn't really a question, it was almost a request, and we thought, gosh, this is gonna be so much fun, but I don't think they really wanted to do it. They were just teasing us. They talked about doing card games for the funeral service instead of a traditional funeral service. And I mean, I seen Rita's eyes light up. She's already getting the tables out, getting the card games out, and she's all planning this, and then they decide, well, maybe we'll wait for afterwards to do that. If they wanted to do card games for a funeral service, we're gonna make that happen, okay? So that's that funeral service requests. Military record, any veterans that are watching, or we have one in the room, it's really important that we have your DD-214 form, which is your discharge paperwork. It helps Jerrica and the funeral directors get things done with the family. Because so much of the things for veterans have to be done at the time of need. So we can fill out paperwork and things like that beforehand, and I have all the paperwork, so those of you that aren't veterans but know veterans, reassure them, Vicki's got the paperwork to help you get that flag order, get that memorial headstone order, whatever it is that you want, but a lot of that can't be done until time of need. But how nice for your family to have it all filled out. That's what we do. And then, of course, emergency contacts, that's just our normal. Who are we gonna call? Who should we talk to? Who should we not talk to? We get that down in the planning. You know, I'd love to stand up here and tell you that every family is perfect and that there are no issues, but I try very hard not to lie in public. And every family has something. And sometimes there are sensitive things like that. I do not want you contacting this child, but you can contact this one. If this one calls in, I do not want them to have information. They need to talk to the sister. And we help navigate that as well. Okay, any questions?
How young do you have to be to start pre-planning?
Every age should be pre-planned. Every age. Parents of young children, I'm gonna look into the camera, parents of young children, come get the pre-planned stuff. Because all of us that are sitting in this room have lived some life. We've seen some death. Hopefully we've seen a lot more life. It is one of the most tragic things to see young parents come in having to bury a child. It's tragic to see any parents coming in to bury a child, but young parents coming in to bury a child is tragic. And we're very good at helping. There are some things that we just can't mend. We cannot fix completely. And I think that's probably one of the saddest things. So even whatever age it is, whatever age a person is, come on in. Let's get the plan down. Let's tell everybody else that, you know, what you want. Tragically, we had a family a couple of years ago that lost a mother, the father, and a child. But the grandparents were still young enough to be able to take care of it. But it was very difficult for that family. So pre-planning is important at all ages. Most common reasons why people pre-plan. You do not see terminal illness up there, okay? But that does happen for me. And I had a couple come in and he was very smiley and very friendly, and she was madder than a wet hen. I could tell by the look on her face when she walked through the door. And so I invited him in, and they had just come from the doctor, and he'd been told that he had less than 3 months to live. And she was mad. And it was probably one of the most difficult conversations I've ever had, because he was very adamant about what he wanted, and he was reassuring her that everything was going to be okay. And she just had little tears running down her face the whole time. But for us that work in the funeral industry, that's one of the reasons why we know when we take a position in this industry, we're led to do it. Because we have the ability to stand in the gap for people, get the job done, and keep the pieces together that we can. And afterwards, we're gonna be there to help pick up pieces as well. And we were, and we have been for this family. But the most common reasons why people pre-plan is it ensures all the funeral costs have been addressed. So once we get through your plan, I'll tell you what your plan cost and today's costs. And then we talk about funding that. Because I always ask this, how many people in the room have a family member that can, let's say, just using a number, that can come up with $10,000 in less than 72 hours without it burdening them? Anybody got that? Usually there's one. But it's very difficult on families. And so we want to make sure we handle that ahead of time, just like anything else we pre-plan in our life. Our 401ks, our pensions, what's gonna happen to my dog if something happens to me. This is very important to pre-plan. No, common reason, no doubts what the funeral or final disposition is. If you hear the word disposition and you're around anybody that works in our industry, all that means is cremation or casketed burial, okay? Decisions that would burden a family later are handled now. All those questions, we get that done. Peace of mind to you and your family. I have never had a couple or a single person walk out of having a pre-plan meeting with me and say, I still feel burdened. Usually they say, gosh, you made that a lot easier than I expected. So thankful. I tell them, now you get to live in life. Don't worry about it anymore. We got you. Okay. It allows loved ones to have a positive grieving experience. When I first heard that statement, I thought that is the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard in my life. A positive grieving experience. But if Jerrica and I and the people that work in the funeral industry do our jobs well, from our customer service standpoint all the way through services and what we call the everything after with taking care of our families afterwards, if we do that well, it will be more positive. Will it be 100% positive? No, because you lost your loved one. But there will be a very more positive outcome, and it will help you start the grieving process, walk through it. You know that now you have people you can call upon, because in grief it becomes very lonely sometimes, and you wonder who's going to help me with this. Well, you just inherited a whole funeral family to give a call to. Okay, so anybody remember this skyline? Yeah, it brings sadness to the groups when I show them this. When did you hear the news about the Twin Tower attack? This is interactive, so give me some memories here. When did you hear the news?
Getting ready for work in the morning.
Getting ready for work in the morning. Okay.
I was cleaning the house and the guy that I cleaned for, he got out and went and turned the TV on, which was not normal.
Yeah.
And so I go peek at the TV and then he says, so we just sat there and watched it.
Yeah. How about you, Galen?
I had got called out overtime on my 7 days off at the mine. And that day my assignment was pit mechanic. And after our brief meeting in the morning, as we walked past the engineering and surveyor's office, they had their radios turned up. We knew something was going south. I was an initial startup in the pit. I had one call mid-afternoon. It was one of them days that I'll never forget to this day. And finally, this young employee called that had problems with the instrument or something on the truck. Went, did my download reader and the check for codes and history and all that. And finally, I says, well, when I get cleared here, we'll do a test run and haul a load of coal up and everything. And got ready to go, and I said, man, that's a bad deal back east, isn't it? And and this young lady broke down and cried. And to come to find out, she'd only worked at Eulogy mine for about 3-4 weeks, and she was from Bronx, New York.
Wow.
That was something I'll never forget to this day.
Yeah.
And she said, I about overslept, I was about late for work, left my cell phone home. She said, all I need to do is get hold of my mom. I told her, I said, I can make that happen. The supervisor, they keep everybody busy, which is right. He says, well, I'm worried about him bothering me, and I says, I'll handle it. And got her back up to the lineup area, and I told her where the lineup room was, dial 9, use the phone in the back, and do whatever you gotta do. The boss came up and said, we need to get her on another truck, this and this, and I says, you need to give her space a half hour. She's from Bronx, New York, she needs to call her mother. Give her space. Oh, he goes, I said, I'm serious.
Yeah. Very detailed stories. You'll never forget that.
Never forget that day.
That's right. Yep. Jerrica, where were you?
I was home with an 11-day-old baby.
Yeah. So you probably remember very distinct, well, you remember 11 days old. You remember probably where you were sitting watching it.
Yes, holding close.
The boys just went to, the other two went to school, yeah.
For sure. So I remember we were driving past the stinky oil well on the interstate. And my boys were in kindergarten and pre-K. We remember this because of there's lots of things, but the trauma of it, it was news that we did not expect. It was news that our brain took in very, very quickly, and we were shocked, okay? So that's why we remember it. Who did you call? Who was the first person you called? Anybody remember? So I picked up the bag phone. Remember the bag phone? And I called my husband. He was working at the mine at that time. And what was he gonna do? That's why I called first. Why? Because I was looking for somebody that knew me, that knew how to talk to me. I could talk to them. We need to know who we can call upon. Usually it's family. When did you see it? We probably all seen it all day long. Yep, they played it at the school. We played it in the library, kept the kids away from it. But we had no idea what was going on. We gathered nationally. We connected locally. And we reflected on what was lost. This is a very famous picture. His daughter died in the Twin Tower attack. Yes, very sad. But we also celebrated what mattered most. Okay? One day your friends and family are going to have their own 9/11, personal 9/11 experience when they lose you. They're going to, and you will too as you lose people, walk through the same exact steps as we did that day. We're going to call people. We're going to want to be reassured. We're going to want to be loved on. We're going to want to love on others. We're going to want to get together. Okay? That's funeral services. It's step by step. It's not difficult to wrap our brains around because we get it when we talk about 9/11. Well, you know what? You're going to be missed too. Your family's going to need to get together. Who said, oh, good grief? Charlie Brown. Okay, you're actually going to take Merv with you.
Oh, no, I have to?
Okay, as I said earlier, part of us, those of us that work in the funeral industry, it is our, I wouldn't say responsibility, but it is our priority, and a portion of it is our responsibility to help you have better grief. Okay, we're resourceful. We're going to help you with that. I also am the aftercare coordinator for the funeral homes, and all that means is I'm the person who follows up. And we have what we call a coffee and conversations group. If anybody knows people who would like to come to it, it's the first Wednesday morning of each month. We meet over at our Walker location, and we just get together and visit about what's going on in life. We just started it. It's amazing. As I told you last time, I recently lost my mom, and I started thinking about doing this group before I lost my mom, and I actually thought, how am I ever gonna relate to these people? I mean, I've always loved people, loved older people. I always have loved talking about grief. I'm the one that's like runs to people when they're, needing help. But I really didn't know, how in the world am I gonna facilitate this group? And how am I gonna deal with those awkward moments? So I started reading, researching. But then my mom died. And what I realized, she died 2 weeks before my first meeting. What I realized is I needed the group as much as they needed me. And we really just get together and visit and commune and do the things that we're supposed to do as human beings. We're made to need each other. So if you know somebody that needs to get together and visit, I usually have some sweets there. Last time we played a little bingo because I didn't really know how to play bingo, and I'm hosting this big bingo blitz across the 3 counties. So they taught me how to play bingo. So I was excited about that. So I'm learning from them and they're learning from me. But anyway, so back to, I'm just gonna skip over this because we already talked about that. We'll talk more when you come to meet with me. Okay, I am out of giveaways, but this is gonna be a freebie. How far is it from Gillette to camping at the base of the Bighorns? It's a little subjective, I know, but
79 miles.
79 miles, very close to the point that I picked. Okay, I picked the point that was 89 miles, so, and Jerrica, I think, has seen this, so your reward is that you get to work with me, because I'm out of everything else.
I don't need to.
She's like, that's not
She's
good.
like, no, you just take the rest of the pie back.
Okay, so I bring this up because part of funeral services is we plan for the unexpected. And I used to say kind of flippantly before my mom died, unexpectedly, that death knows no schedule. I would just say that. I mean, I wasn't a jerk about it, but I was trying to get my clients to realize it happens when we least expect it. But now I've lived through it. I mean, my dad's even said to me, I thought I would be the one that would die first. And I said back to him, so did I. So we try to help families walk through the unexpected. I ask you this because if you were to die more than 75 miles away from home, do you think it would be important to have something in place that would help your family pay for those away from home expenses? So in the funeral industry, because we work in unexpected situations, we have things to help families facilitate that. So whether you're watching at home, you're watching across the state, you're sitting here with me today, when you go in and you talk to your funeral home about pre-planning, please, please, please specifically ask them, do you have something that I can purchase that will help my family pay for expenses away from home? I almost guarantee you that they do, but that's something that not a lot of people think about. It can be very, very expensive, and plus the trauma of it. We ended up in Loveland, Colorado. We knew no one there. It was at 1:30 in the morning when we arrived. We didn't even know what motel you stay at in Loveland, Colorado in the middle of the night. I mean, we're a small city or small town people, so we weren't sure what to expect, let alone trying to find a motel. When mom died the next day, had we not known about these types of things you could put in place, we would have had no idea who to call. We would have been completely lost. Of course, the hospital is going to help you, but they have 10 or 12 other people in a critical care unit that they're trying to help too. So please, please, please ask your local funeral home, ask us about this as well. We can help guide you in that too. Yeah, so thanks for coming. This is the end of this series for this week. We have to tell the library once again, Campbell County Public Library is amazing. Genevieve is amazing. They help us put this together. Genevieve always has the treats table and all of the refreshments ready. She's amazing. Okay, so past all the amazing stuff. We are very appreciative that you come. We always do this for our community. There's lots of stuff coming up, including next week. Rick Erb will be here, and he'll be giving legal concepts and ideas, and basically asking you if you've asked yourself these types of questions and what you've done to walk through it. That's next week here, 1 to 3. We also have Bingo Blitz happening from here, well, Gillette will be in the fall, but we're doing Moorcroft and Upton and Newcastle because we want our communities along northeastern Wyoming and those 3 counties especially, our 3 counties, to know we're here for our families, for more than just your funeral. We are a part of your community. And that is our goal, to remain a part of the community and take care of people. So if there's any questions that Jerrica and I can ask or answer, you can ask them. Anything? No? Okay.
Is it getting easier for people to pre-plan?
I think it is getting
Or is
easier.
it?
Yeah, because the word's getting out there.
Okay.
Most people don't really know about pre-planning, but we've been out in the community so much that, the Gillette Funeral Services has been doing pre-planning for a long time and been very active in the community, but it takes a while to get things going. I think more pre-plans are coming into fruition because people are passing that have pre-planned. So family members have lived through a pre-plan and they say, oh my gosh, that was such a blessing. Thank goodness mom or dad did that. So that's usually when people come in and see me because they recognize the ease of it. I think that our hospice is very well informed of, we have this as well. Our long-term care facility works with us. So I do believe that. And I think just word of mouth, as we all know, that's the most powerful thing, just telling people, hey, have you ever thought about this? Everybody thinks about it. Nobody talks about it, right? We all know. But just think of it as a sensitive but necessary subject. Yeah. Nobody wants to go to the dentist and have their tooth pulled either, but it's necessary at times. So just like any kind of pre-plan, get it in place, take the burden off your shoulders, take it off your kids' shoulders, and that's what I'm here to help you with. And if you know anyone that's grieving, no matter if they lost their loved one 5 years ago, whatever, and you're concerned for them, or you're just like, gosh, they should go to a group of people to get it. First Wednesday every month, 10 o'clock at the Walker location. That's where we meet. So, all right. Okay, we're gonna call it a day. That's a wrap. Genevieve, thank you.
Thank you.